If you're in your 20s and your finances are overwhelming to you, you are not alone. I used to be super overwhelmed when it came to managing my money and getting my finances under control, but over the last few years, I've developed a financial system that really works for me, and that's what I'm going to be sharing in today's video. I was in college when I started to take my finances seriously, and before that, I was kind of a mess with my money. I always felt like no matter how much money I made, I never had any money left over at the end of the month to save, and I sort of just spent whatever was in my checking account. But I was super fortunate that I did start to take my finances seriously in college because it didn't give me a ton of time to make like really big financial mistakes. And I was able to come out of college, get my first full-time job, and really just hit the ground running with hitting some of my financial goals, like saving and investing. That was a few years ago now. And after taking my finances seriously for a few years, I was able to hit some of my really big financial goals in my early 20s, like growing my net worth to 100K and paying off my student loans. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Erin. I'm in my mid-20s, and on this channel, I make videos on money, productivity, and wellness. If you're interested in more content like this, please like and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. This video is broken down into 3 sections, which are money mindset, my financial system, and my money habits. So let's get into it. The money mindset piece is where we're going to start because in my opinion, this was the most important thing that I did to really get my finances together in my early 20s. If you are like I was, then you might not really understand truly why you need to care about money. And if you don't understand that, it can be really hard to prioritize your finances and work towards your financial goals. That's why my first tip is to understand that money actually isn't that important. Time is. Your time is absolutely your most valuable resource, and what makes money important is that it's the resource that can help you buy back your time. This made the most sense to me when I graduated from college, and I really hated my first full-time job, and immediately I was kind of like, I cannot picture myself doing this for the next 40 years, and not even really that job specifically, but the thought of giving up 40 to 50 hours a week of my time kind of for the rest of my life really just made me upset. I knew that the only way to not have to work for someone else literally up until the day that you die is to have money, so to save money or invest money. And at that point, that's when I knew that I really wanted to make my finances a priority in my 20s. Second is to really understand that your 20s are absolutely your most powerful years. If you've never heard of the concept of compound interest, essentially it just means that the more time that your money has to work for you, the exponentially more powerful it becomes. That means that money invested in your 20s is exponentially more powerful than money invested in your 30s and 40s. As a 20-year-old learning about personal finance, that was really encouraging to me because I knew that time was on my side in this regard. And third, and definitely my most important tip, is to surround yourself with people that are doing really incredible things with their money. When I was in college and I was trying to learn about personal finance, I listened to probably 500 plus podcast episodes all about people who were doing really incredible things. Starting businesses, retiring early, building wealth. These were things that people in my personal life just flat out were not doing, but it really was the only way that I was able to shift my money mindset and kind of understand what's possible if I took my finances seriously. Books and podcasts really allowed me to sort of get in the same room with the people that were doing these incredible things. So I would highly recommend picking up a couple personal finance books, listening to some money podcasts. This is a good time to plug my own money podcast that I started a couple of months ago. It's called Girls Talk Money, and it's a podcast for women in their 20s who want to learn about personal finance, but still in like a fun and girly and conversational way. I'll link my podcast in the description, so definitely go check that out. Now the good stuff, let's get into how I actually manage my money. This is going to be my entire financial system. The first piece of my financial system is how I earn money. Over the past couple of years, after I spent the time becoming financially literate and building all of my financial systems, I really worked on increasing my income through diversifying my income. Now, I think this is an important piece because if you are struggling with your money, it's really easy to assume that you don't make enough money and that once you do increase your income, all of your money problems will go away. But increasing your income alone is not going to help you. There are plenty of people out there that make well over 6 figures that still live paycheck to paycheck. In my opinion, I think it's really important to build your solid financial systems first so that when you do increase your income, you know how to allocate that money. Now, back to how I earn money. So really this first piece of my money map here, at this point in my life, I'm totally self-employed, meaning that all of the money that I earn flows into my business. This is after a couple of years of working both my corporate job and then also doing some like side things on the side because again, I was focusing on diversifying my income. So all of my different revenue goes into my business account. And then for my retirement account, I do contribute to a solo 401k on a pre-tax basis. If you're not self-employed, this is going to look pretty much the same, just instead of business account, this would be your employer. And then this would say 401k instead of solo 401k. I am set up on payroll through my business, which is really nice because that means that I pay myself the same exact salary every single month. And that salary is coming from my business account and flowing into my checking account every month. I have my checking and my savings accounts all with Capital One. We'll talk about the savings accounts in a little bit, but I love Capital One so much, really just because for me, again, I have my checking and my savings here, but then I also have a credit credit card with Capital One that I use all the time as well. I just like being able to see everything in one dashboard. So I log into my Capital One account, which you'll see here, and I'm able to see my checking account, some of like my savings accounts, which again, we'll talk about, and then my credit card here as well. My credit card bill is a little bit high right now because I put a trip on my credit card and my friends are like Venmoing me back for it. So it's a little bit high right now. But the point is that I can come in here and see everything all in one place, which I really love. The savings accounts are also high yield, which means that I'm earning about 4.5% right now at the time I'm recording this, just for keeping my money in their savings accounts. From my checking account, which again, my income flows from my business account to my checking account, that money is flowing to 3 different places: savings accounts, credit card payments, and my investment accounts. The first one is savings. I have automatic transfers going from my checking account to all of my different savings accounts. Again, these savings accounts are with Capital One. I like to separate my savings accounts for different savings goals. These are called sinking funds, and I use them to save for different short-term savings goals. The first one here is my emergency fund. I like to keep around $15,000 in my emergency fund. It should be between 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. I've already funded my emergency fund, so I'm really not saving for that anymore on a monthly basis. Second is a travel fund. I set aside $300 a month into a travel sinking fund. I really do try to prioritize experiences, and if I'm traveling, I don't want to feel guilty for the money that I'm spending, so I like to have money set aside for the trips that I'm taking. Holidays, I set aside $200 a month for the holidays. Christmas is super expensive, and I don't want to be stressed about money around the holidays. I like buying presents for people, and I also like to shop for myself when there's sales going on. So the $200 a month that I'm saving comes out to around $2,000 that I know I have set aside for holiday things and holiday expenses. Car insurance and maintenance. I pay my car insurance every 6 months, so every month I set aside $125 into this sinking fund so that when my car insurance is due, it doesn't feel like this huge bill and it doesn't feel like it's blowing my budget in the month that it's due. And fifth is a new one for 2024. I'm starting to save for my first home down payment this year. I don't have super immediate plans to buy a home, but my lease is going to be up in around 15 months, and I don't know where life will take me at that point. Maybe I'll want to buy a home at that point, but regardless, it takes a really long time to save up enough money to have a down payment for a house. So I am starting to save for that this year. I'm saving for my home down payment in a full-year savings account, which is a first-time home buyer savings account, which I'm really excited about. Their app has a ton of different tools to help me save, and they have a really good APY, and they also offer a 2% deposit match on your savings, which is really awesome. I can add more information about Foyer in the description if you're interested in learning more. The second thing on this list is money flowing from my checking account to my credit card payments. I use my credit cards for literally all of my spending, and I will say that this is something that I think that you can only do effectively if you do have a really strong financial system and you're super diligent about budgeting and tracking your spending and just knowing where your money is going, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's no secret that swiping a credit card is very easy, and when you're spending on a credit card, it can be really easy to overspend. So if you're not keeping track of where your money is going, I don't necessarily recommend spending on a credit card or spending on multiple credit cards. But if you can do so effectively, which is what I do, I spend on my credit cards, but I make sure I pay them off in full every single month. Then you can take advantage of the credit card points and rewards and all of the things, which is what I try to do. These are the 3 credit cards that I'm currently spending on. Again, I spend on multiple credit cards because I like to take advantage of credit card points and rewards, especially redeeming my credit card points for travel so that I can travel more in my 20s without feeling like my traveling is completely blowing my budget. So here are the 3 cards that I currently put all of my spending on. We'll talk through each one, but I'll also link them all in the description if you want to learn more. The first card that I'm currently spending on is the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. I love this card so much, mainly because the points that you earn on this card are super valuable. It has a $95 annual fee, but the welcome bonus alone could be upwards of like $1,000 or so depending on how you use the points. I transfer almost all of my Chase points over to Hyatt, which is one of their like 15 or so transfer partners. By transferring to Hyatt, I can stay in really nice hotels on credit card points, and they have some really good redemption rates. The second card in my wallet is the Built Rewards card. If you're looking for a really great beginner card without an annual fee, I love Built so much, and the main reason is because you can actually pay your rent with your Built card. If you try to pay your rent with a regular credit or debit card, then you usually get hit with a convenience fee of like 2 to 3%, which means that you're not getting any points for the amount that you're spending on your rent. With a Built card, you can pay your rent with your Built card without that convenience fee, so you're able to earn 1 point per dollar spent on your rent, which is really amazing. These points are also super valuable as well. They have a ton of awesome transfer partners like Hyatt, American, and United. And third is the Capital One Venture X card. This card does have a $395 annual fee, but I've been traveling a lot recently. This card comes with both TSA pre-check and also airport lounge access, which, doing the math on how many times I actually go into the lounge, I'm definitely getting my money's worth on this card. I also love that this card earns you 2 points per dollar spent on all of your transactions, so I use this for things like online shopping or really any category that I would only be getting 1x points for if I was to use another card. I have all 3 of these cards set to auto pay, so it will pay the entire statement balance by the statement due date, so I'm never accruing any interest on my card and I'm never carrying a balance. Auto pay is really nice so that I never have to remember to make my credit card payments, because on-time payments is really important for your credit score, so it's important to never miss a payment. In my checking account, I like to keep at least 1 month's worth of expenses in my checking account at all times. I call this a checking fund, and essentially this just makes sure that I can have auto pay set up for all of my credit card payments and the payments won't bounce. And last, the third place that my money flows from my checking account is to my investment accounts. Remember, before the money is even hitting my checking account, I do have some money going into a solo 401k on a pre-tax basis, and that is my main retirement account. However, I do invest some extra money as well just into like regular brokerage accounts, and that's what these accounts are. The first brokerage account I have is with Charles Schwab, and this is just a regular brokerage account where I invest primarily in ETF. An ETF is super similar to an index fund, if you know what that is, and essentially that just means instead of picking individual stocks, I'm picking a fund that includes a ton of different stocks. For example, this is what the inside of my brokerage account portfolio looks like. This looks really confusing, but this is essentially just all of the ETFs that I'm holding within my brokerage account. I do have some random individual stocks up here. I feel like I bought these in like college or something when I was really just starting to learn about investing, but primarily these ETFs here are what I invest in inside of my brokerage account. Honestly, if you're just getting started and this even looks overwhelming, these two right here, VT and VTI, are really great ways to get started. And reason being is because VTI is a total US stock market ETF. So just by buying this one fund, you get access to essentially all of the companies in the US stock market. And this fund is meant to track the performance of the stock market. So if the stock market is up 10% one day, your fund will be up around 10% one day. And then VT right here is a total world stock market ETF. So this is a US stock market, but this would give you diversification outside of the US. So by buying one fund, you have access to all of the stocks outside of the US and every other country in the world. The second account that I have here is my Fundrise account, and Fundrise does make up a very small percentage of my overall portfolio. I would say around 5%. This is what the inside of my Fundrise portfolio dashboard looks like. Through my Fundrise account, what I'm investing into is essentially private market real estate on one end. So Fundrise is kind of, let's say, a crowdfunding platform where you're putting money into a real estate fund, and then their team is going and investing in the real estate, and you are getting like a share of the profit. It's at like a super high level how it works, but if you're interested in the real estate market, this could be a way to kind of like dip your toes into it without actually going and buying a property. The second piece of this is their venture fund, or I think they call this their innovation fund. This is newer on the Fundrise platform, but essentially what this does is it allows you to get access to pre-IPO companies. If you're purchasing a stock, that's a public company. That company has gone through an IPO. But if you are a venture capitalist, you can invest in startups. So these are companies that are not public yet. They have not been through an IPO. A lot of times these venture capital investments are where a lot of the growth occurs. Definitely a lot riskier, but it is where a lot of like upside potential lies. So I have a very, very small percentage of my overall investment portfolio in this like innovation fund. 36% of my Fundrise portfolio, and my Fundrise portfolio as a whole is only $2,700 when my investment portfolio as a whole is like $100,000. Now that we broke down how my money flows and all of the different pieces of my financial system, let's talk about my money habits. And in my opinion, I think this is the most important piece. Whether or not you have money left over at the end of the month to save, invest, pay down debt, whatever your financial goals are, that's completely dependent on whether your income is greater than your expenses. And this seems super intuitive, but this is actually the most challenging piece as well. It's actually super easy to become financially literate. You can pick up a couple of books or listen to some podcast episodes and basically learn everything that you need to know. But the most challenging part, and where you're going to need to spend the most energy kind of for the rest of your life, is making sure that you're not overspending. That means that everything that we've talked about in this video so far, day to day or week to week or even month over month, you're not going to spend that much time like reviewing your system or putting that much energy into it. Kind of like set it up once, let it work for you in the back end, and like check in on it here and there. But what you are going to continue spending a lot of time on is understanding where your money's going and making sure you're not overspending. That's why I'm also such a big proponent of automating as much as you can in your financial system, because if that system that we just reviewed, if that's all working for you kind of on the back end, you're freeing up so much time to be able to focus all of that energy strictly on your spending. In this section, we're going to break down my 3 main money habits, and that includes budgeting, tracking my spending, and reflection. I honestly don't spend a ton of time budgeting. I kind of create my budget once and then like don't change it much month over month. If I have like a significant update to make, let's say my rent goes up 6 months from now, I will come in and I'll change that. but every month my budget is staying relatively the same. I create my budget in this budget template, and I will link this budget template in the description. I love my budget template so much. Over 20,000 people between my TikTok and my Instagram channels have purchased this budget template, and everyone seems to love it as much as I do. This is definitely the one tool that's made the biggest difference in my financial system, and it's because it allows me to do all three of my money habits: budgeting, tracking my spending, and reflection. Let's talk through how I created my budget here. So first, you start with your income. Again, I am salaried through my business, so I get paid the exact same amount every single month. This amount is what I'm budgeting with on a post-tax basis, and I'm allocating that between my needs, my wants, debt, savings, and investments. Then I come in here and I add in my needs and wants categories. I like to keep my categories pretty high level, so I don't have that many categories here. Debt, I was able to become completely debt-free in 2023, which was my big 2023 financial goal, so nothing in the debt payments, and then everything else goes to savings and investments. We already touched on my different saving and investing accounts. The second money habit that I have is tracking my spending, and this is where I spend the most time on a monthly basis between anything related to my finances. I track my spending completely manually, meaning I log every single dollar that I spend into the spreadsheet. Every single week, I have the habit of pulling up the spreadsheet and pulling up all of my credit card transactions, and I'm logging all of my transactions from the week prior. So again, I do it once a week. It takes me maybe 10 minutes a week, but doing it manually forces me to comb through all of my transactions and forces me to hold myself accountable for my purchases. So if I go shopping on Saturday and I know that on Monday morning I need to log the $200 or whatever that I spent at the mall, that's going to make me rethink my $200 purchase. Or on Monday, after I made that $200 purchase, it's going to force me to hold myself accountable for that spending and be like, oh shoot, I spent $200 on Saturday. Let's put that into my spending tracker and see where I'm at compared to my budget. Also, doing this weekly kind of allows me to shift my spending behavior in real time. So if I'm logging my spending and it's halfway through the week and I see that I'm already over my budget in my food and drink category, then I know that I kind of need to cool my spending in that category for the next couple of weeks to avoid going completely over my budget. Again, for me, doing this manually was the one thing that's made the biggest impact on my financial life so far in my 20s. Before I started using this, I would try to use the budgeting apps that would do this automatically for me, but that really puts a barrier between you and your spending because it doesn't force you to comb through all of your transactions. The last money habit after tracking your spending is reflection, and this template does a really good job of helping me do that as well. So you're logging all of your transactions in the transactions log, but then everything else on these monthly tabs is just a ton of data on where you landed in comparison to your budget. So you can come down here and see that your expected budget for food and drinks was $300, but maybe you actually spent $400 that month. Or on the income side, let's say you're not salaried, your income's a little bit more variable. Let's say you expected to make $3,000 one month, but you actually made $4,000 in a month. You can see that here. These tabs do a really good job of helping you reflect on your spending, but then there's also this yearly summary dashboard down here, which gives you year-to-date analytics. So down here, you can super easily see how much you've made so far this year and how much you've spent and where that money has gone. The last aspect of this template, which is also kind of in the reflection piece, is the net worth tracker, which I love this part of the template so much. I haven't added in my January data yet. Once the month of January is over, you click this checkbox and it'll automatically populate from the January month. But this net worth tracker helps you keep track of all of your different accounts. You enter the starting balance. These accounts populate from the monthly budget tab, so a lot of this is automated, but it's just a really good way to see kind of how you're doing and how you're trending from a holistic financial perspective. So if you do this for an entire year and you see that your debt position is actually increasing, or maybe you do it for a year and you really haven't made a dent onto your debt, or after 12 months you realize that you did a really good job saving this year, or your investment portfolio grew by $20,000. This is just a really good place to kind of centralize all of your accounts and keep track of your money. I think that brings us to the end of today. I hope you guys found this video helpful just to see an overview of what my financial system looks like, the different habits that I use on a weekly and monthly basis to make sure I'm managing my money and keeping track of it, as well as how to get your money mindset right in your 20s, because I think that's a super important piece as well. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And be sure to drop any questions you have in the comments about how I manage my money.